Something unimaginable has unfolded inside Buckingham Palace, as the royal family confirmed a heartbreaking development that has left the world in stunned disbelief. The sudden announcement came without warning, shaking Britain to its core and sending waves of grief across the globe, from London to Sydney and far beyond. For generations, the palace has symbolized stability, strength, and continuity, but tonight that image appears shattered, prompting one urgent question on everyone's mind. What truly happened behind those royal gates? This tragic day has altered the monarchy forever. The morning itself began deceptively calm, with the sun casting a soft golden light over the palace courtyard as staff carried on with their usual routines, unaware of the storm about to break. Yet subtle signs of disruption soon emerged. Phones rang earlier than normal, meetings were abruptly cancelled, and senior aides hurried through the corridors with tense expressions. A strange stillness settled over the palace, punctuated by hushed whispers and hurried footsteps, creating an atmosphere of unease that grew heavier by mid-morning. As staff avoided eye contact and polite smiles vanished, replaced by a shared sense that something was terribly wrong. Eye contact was avoided, and messages were no longer sent by email, but delivered in person. The communications team, usually visible and at ease, disappeared behind locked doors, while outside the palace gates reporters began to notice unsettling changes. Security vehicles arrived in clusters, staff slipped in through rarely used side entrances, and guards shifted positions without explanation. Clear signs that something serious had disrupted the palace's unshakable order. By noon, cautious whispers reached the press, with journalists relying on fragments of information to make sense of the chaos. Some described it as a significant development, others as deeply troubling, and within an hour speculation spiraled out of control. Social media flooded with rumors, each more dramatic than the last, and even veteran royal correspondents admitted they had no idea what was happening. Then, without warning, the royal website briefly went offline before returning with a stark statement, black text on a white background framed by the royal crest, acknowledging a deeply distressing and heartbreaking development within the royal family. It offered sorrow, gratitude for public concern, and a plea for privacy, but no details, no explanations, only the heavy confirmation of tragedy. The impact was immediate. Television broadcasts were interrupted, phones buzzed in offices and classrooms, and people stopped mid-action to read the words themselves. Crowds gathered silently at the palace gates as reporters spoke in hushed tones and cameras captured a growing sea of mourners, while guards stood motionless, their stillness now reflecting grief rather than discipline. Inside, the silence was suffocating, with long-serving staff saying they had never known the palace to be so quiet. Some were quietly sent home, others instructed to stay put, as corridors once filled with conversations stretched endlessly, lined with disbelief and unanswered questions. By evening, the news had spread far beyond Britain, with headlines from Washington to Sydney echoing the same haunting phrase, tragedy in the palace. Yet Buckingham Palace offered nothing more than that initial statement, and behind its grand walls, history itself seemed to falter, as the unthinkable settled in, and the heart of the monarchy felt forever changed. Brief yet devastating, the statement carried the full weight of grief in every carefully chosen word, speaking of an event that had deeply shaken the royal family and left the nation in mourning. Its tone was unlike anything the palace had released before, not formal or distant, but human, trembling, and raw. Within minutes, television programs across Britain were interrupted as solemn, visibly shaken anchors read the message aloud, filling homes and offices with disbelief. Though common language, the words were unbearably heavy, revealing a royal household that sounded fragile rather than composed. And in those few sentences, the monarchy exposed not just tragedy, but emotion the public could feel. Outside Buckingham Palace, mourning took shape in silence as people arrived drawn by something deeper than curiosity, some carrying flowers or photographs of happier royal moments, others standing empty-handed at the center of national grief. Daily life seemed to pause as schools, shops, and offices fell quiet. Church bells tolled across towns and cities, and whispers of "Have you heard?" spread among strangers. Social media erupted with messages of prayer, disbelief, and compassion from citizens, celebrities, and world leaders alike, while by evening the crowd outside the palace had grown, candles flickering in the wind, flowers covering the pavement, and handwritten notes pressed against the gates. Elderly couples wept, parents guided children through the moment, and the palace lights glowed behind iron bars as the nation absorbed the reality that no details were needed. Emotion alone had shaken a country long used to royal stoicism. For the first time in living memory, the monarchy revealed its heart, and the people grieved alongside it, united not by ceremony or tradition, but by a shared, overwhelming sorrow that rippled through Britain and beyond. The sound of church bells filled the air, from London's great cathedrals to tiny rural chapels, their solemn toll rolling across fields and through city streets, not by royal decree but by instinct, a spontaneous act of shared mourning. That transcended ceremony. People stepped outside their homes to listen, standing still as the echoes carried on the wind, each note a reminder that grief knows no boundaries and can unite distant hearts across the world. Social media quickly became a torrent of emotion, with images of Buckingham Palace gates, the royal crest, and the family at the center of heartbreak flooding timelines. Hashtags trending globally as a digital memorial formed before the news could even be fully processed. Messages of condolence poured in from every continent, prayers, memories of happier times, and countless expressions of disbelief, as celebrities, public figures, world leaders, and ordinary citizens joined a single global voice of sorrow. Outside the palace, thousands gathered in silence, the cold wind carrying the scent of flowers and candle wax, as a little girl placed a single rose at the gates beside her weeping mother, while elderly couples held hands, gazing toward palace windows for reassurance that would never come. As evening fell, Buckingham Palace glowed softly behind iron gates, reporters spoke in hushed tones, and the once unshakable symbol of endurance appeared fragile, its grandeur softened by grief. Inside, sorrow hung so heavily it felt almost physical. Advisors moved quietly, voices fell to whispers, and even seasoned staff were reduced to tears. An emergency meeting brought senior royals together beneath cold chandeliers, where words offered no comfort and solutions did not exist. The king sat silent, gaze lowered, stripped of ceremony and composure, a father broken by loss, with Queen Camilla's hand resting gently on his arm. When the meeting ended, no one moved at first, and when they finally did, footsteps echoed through marble halls where duty no longer provided refuge, leaving the family to face a truth no crown could shield them from. Prince William focused on protecting his children from the crushing weight that had settled over their home, while Kate, steadfast as ever, held the family together with quiet, unshakable strength. They were briefly seen at a window overlooking the courtyard, their silhouettes framed by the fading afternoon light, both staring into the distance with expressions of exhaustion and disbelief. As messages of condolence poured in from across the world from heads of state and celebrities to ordinary citizens, time inside the palace seemed frozen. Footsteps grew rare, meals went untouched, and even the ticking of clocks sounded unnaturally loud, as staff whispered that they had never witnessed such stillness or such heartbreak. When night fell over London, palace lights dimmed one by one, and the king remained in solitude, declining briefings and visitors, as Buckingham Palace, long a symbol of strength and endurance, became something far more human, a house in mourning. Behind its walls, the family that carried a nation's hopes could do nothing but grieve, not as royals bound by duty, but as parents and children facing a loss too deep for words. For Prince William, the tragedy marked not only a test of responsibility, but a breaking point after years of quiet strain. In the weeks before the announcement, his appearances had grown fewer, his smiles more forced, his voice softer, even as he continued to fulfill expectations. When the news broke, he reportedly withdrew to his study at Adelaide Cottage, ignoring a flood of calls and messages as he sat alone, staring out over the gardens where his children often played, trying to comprehend a reality that had arrived with brutal speed. For a man long balancing the roles of father, husband, and future king, the moment was described by those close to him as surreal and unbearable, the culmination of pressures and grief he had carried for far too long. From an early age, Prince William learned to contain his emotions, understanding that the public watches not only what royals say, but how they appear. Composure became his armor, a shield forged through decades of scrutiny, yet this time it cracked. When he appeared before the cameras later that day, his eyes were red and his expression pale, with no rehearsed smile or polished tone, revealing not the heir of the throne, but a man standing at the edge of grief. Princess Kate stood beside him, steady and graceful, her quiet presence anchoring him as her hand brushed his in moments of support. Together they faced the cameras, their voices trembling as William thanked the public for their kindness and compassion, pausing often as the effort to continue seemed almost too much. When he asked for space for his family to grieve, it sounded less like a formal royal request, and more like the plea of a husband and father determined to protect those he loved. After the brief appearance, they returned to Windsor, and released a short note announcing a temporary step back from public duties. Behind closed doors, William spent the evening maintaining routine with his children, shielding them from the storm beyond, though the ache remained visible, as the boy who once walked behind his mother's coffin now faced another profound loss as a man carrying both a crown and unbearable sorrow. For King Charles, the dilemma was equally clear and deeply painful. The tragedy that swept through the palace was not only a national crisis, but a personal wound, forcing a collision between duty and heartbreak within Buckingham Palace's solemn walls. He walked the long corridors in silence, torn between reassuring a grieving nation and mourning as a father. Advisors urged him to address the public, yet every prepared speech felt too formal, too hollow, and he crossed out lines, rewriting them in his own hand until the words no longer sounded like those of a monarch, but of a father searching for meaning in loss. As night fell, cameras were set in one of the palace's oldest rooms, framed by gold and velvet, and the king sat at a polished desk dressed in black, hands clasped tightly, the silence in the room heavy with emotion. The silence in the room was unbearable as the red light blinked on, and King Charles lifted his head to speak, his voice soft, unsteady, and painfully sincere. Gone were the rehearsed tones of a royal address. Instead, he spoke from the heart, thanking the nation for its compassion, acknowledging the depth of shared grief, and admitting that even a king could not always find words for such sorrow. When he quietly said, "We are all, in the end, human," the line echoed through living rooms, pubs, hospitals, and cafes, carrying a weight no speechwriter could ever create. Families sat in silence, faces lit by television screens, as the distance between monarchy and people seemed to dissolve. When the address ended, there was no applause, only reflection, as thousands stood outside the palace in the cold, some crying, others holding flickering candles. His words did not erase the pain, but they united the nation in shared humanity, lingering in the days that followed as a reminder that strength is found not in titles or ceremony, but in honesty and compassion. As shock slowly gave way to questions, curiosity grew about what had truly happened behind palace gates, and whispers began to surface in newsrooms and online. The palace eventually confirmed that the tragedy was not rooted in scandal, politics, or power, but in something far more personal, a profound and unexpected loss that cut deep into the heart of the family. Those who saw the royals in the days before spoke of exhaustion and quiet strain, of Prince William appearing distant, Princess Kate unusually subdued, and an unspoken tension lingering through corridors once defined by order and routine. When the truth emerged, it was devastating in its simplicity. A loss beyond control, stripping away ceremony, and leaving only raw humanity. Grief moved through the palace like a shadow, touching everyone from senior aides to new staff, exposing how fragile the balance between duty and personal life had become. Reflecting on years of relentless scrutiny and impossible expectations, many realized that cracks had long been forming beneath the monarchy's polished surface, and when tragedy struck, those cracks split wide open. Yet the public response was not anger or gossip, but compassion, as people recognized their own experiences of loss mirrored in the family's pain. Parents, siblings, and loved ones across the country understood that even the most unshakable symbols could break, and as the palace asked for privacy, one truth resonated clearly. Behind the crowns and titles stood a family no different from any other, unable to escape the weight of sorrow. The pain felt painfully familiar, a reminder that even behind palace walls hearts can break, and no amount of power can protect a family from loss. Across the United Kingdom, a hush fell over daily life, beginning in London, where the usually bustling streets near Buckingham Palace became silent avenues of grief. Strangers stood side by side, united by an invisible thread of shared heartbreak, their eyes fixed on palace gates that had become symbols of loss. The cold air was heavy with the scent of roses and rain as some wept openly, while others stared in disbelief. Unable to find words, the tragedy no longer belonging only to the royal family, but to the nation itself. Similar scenes unfolded across Britain, from Edinburgh, where mourners placed Scottish thistles among lilies, to Cardiff, where cathedral bells echoed through narrow streets as candles were lit, and Belfast, where crowds stood silently holding photographs of the royal family. With the Union Jack flying at half-mast, it felt as though the entire country had paused, holding its breath in collective sorrow. Cathedrals and churches opened their doors, drawing long lines outside St. Paul's and Westminster Abbey, where candlelight washed ancient walls in warm gold, and people of all ages knelt together to pray or simply sit in stillness. Clergy spoke of compassion and shared humanity, words that resonated far beyond faith. As strangers embraced, conversations shifted from politics to empathy, and even longtime critics of the monarchy found themselves mourning not titles or crowns, but a family in pain. Generations came together in ways rarely seen. Elderly citizens standing beside young people, parents lifting children onto their shoulders to witness a moment history would never forget. In towns and villages, vigils burned through the night, candles reflecting in puddles, hymns drifting through the air, toys and handwritten letters left at gates, ribbons fluttering in royal colors, and volunteers offering warmth and comfort to strangers. For a rare moment, the United Kingdom felt like one family, bound by shared grief, finding quiet healing in unity. As days passed, the palace remained silent, flags stayed at half-mast, and the sea of flowers continued to grow, spilling across the pavement in a mosaic of color and sorrow. Photographs of the royal family, some faded with time and others freshly printed, were nestled among the bouquets as candles flickered in the drizzle, wax pooling over the stone, each flame a quiet prayer not only for what had been lost, but for what lay ahead. Britain was mourning, yet it was also waiting, searching for a sign, a word, or a glimpse of the future within Buckingham Palace. Inside, time seemed to move differently, as vast halls, once alive with ceremony, fell into near silence, footsteps echoing where laughter had once lingered. The king remained largely out of sight, appearing only briefly for meetings before retreating to private quarters, while Prince William and Princess Kate withdrew entirely to be with their children, leaving the monarchy, for the first time in generations, hidden behind walls of grief. Inevitably, the unspoken question began to surface. What happens now? Newspapers filled with speculation about the crown's future, commentators debated the stability of the institution, and royal experts spoke cautiously of transitions and uncertainty for a monarchy long associated with permanence. Yet beneath the unease, a quiet realization took hold. The tragedy had changed everything. The pain etched across the royal family's faces stripped away the illusion of untouchable grandeur, revealing a crown that felt fragile, real, and profoundly human. Conversations shifted from sorrow to reflection, as people wondered whether a monarchy that showed its emotions could still command reverence, or whether this marked the beginning of a new legacy built on connection rather than ceremony. As night fell over London and palace lights glowed faintly through the fog, the murmurs of the crowd beyond the gates became the soundtrack of a nation grieving together. In that stillness, one truth settled deeply. Crowns may symbolize power, but beneath them beat hearts that can break like any other. And while the road ahead remains uncertain, the future of the monarchy will be shaped not by tradition alone, but by humanity, compassion, and the strength found in shared sorrow.